Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Lifetime Legacy Lawyer Podcast. I'm Thomas Vick, Seth Wilson, also here with you. Seth, how's it going today?
Thomas, I'm doing great. It's good to have an opportunity to meet. The two of us have been extremely occupied over the last several weeks and lots of exciting things going on. So good to be back on our recording schedule and excited to catch up with you, see what you've been up to over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, as we've been apart here and not doing the podcast for a few weeks here, you and I were just kind of talking about all the AI technology that we've been using. And it's kind of crazy that in the 3 or 4 weeks that we haven't done the podcast, there have been some additions to the AI technology that we use in our law practice. And so we thought maybe that would be a good thing to discuss today. I'll just kind of to start it off. One of the tools that I've been using, and I've talked about it before on the podcast, is using Claude. So I've got an AI note-taking device here, and clients will allow me to use it in my phone calls with them, and then also with the initial consultations and things like that. And I have a normal conversation with them, normal consultation, and then at the end of it, because I've got those notes, I can go back to Claude, and then I can generate an email summary based upon the notes that Claude has taken for me. And I was telling you that kind of the transition that I have been making is, well, I'm not dictating to, Office 365 or Copilot or what have you, my notes. I'm really just downloading my notes now and putting them into a different format. And I was telling you that the next iteration for me is I need to get some kind of agent that can pull the Claude notes and then put them automatically into a format that can be sent out as a summary to the client. And so it's just kind of exciting, the progression that as you're using AI technology, it begins to change and rather rapidly.
Yeah, and to that end, you and I both use Plod. And so I'm really curious because Plod is one of those tools that quickly integrates itself into every workflow that you have. And for example, when you start a Microsoft Teams call or a Zoom meeting, Plod has a capability to auto start alongside those meetings and give you a summary. And so again, you have to make sure that everyone knows that on the call you're being recorded and have permission to do that. Make sure that that's sort of the practice habit that you get into. And I typically show everybody the recorder that I'm going to use and say, hey, do you mind if I take notes? And as I'm saying that, I go ahead and turn the recorder on, so I have that on the recording. If they say no, obviously we could turn it off, but I haven't really had anybody that objects to it. And in fact, some of my clients are saying, hey, I use Pocket or I use whatever else, and they ask if they can record it. And I'm curious about how this stuff works. So as long as I don't think there's going to be an attorney-client issue with that, I'll say yeah. And then I'm always aware that the recording is happening because I'm recording it. So I know that if we're going to talk about something that is ultra confidential, we'll turn that off and have that discussion away from the recorder, so to speak. But the agent side of that is really interesting. So you're starting to see the infiltration and connection needs of all these disparate tools. So you have a separate device that does the recording and then it connects and does all these things. Well, this protocol has come along called MCPs, or Model Context Protocols. And you can now connect different AI tools to each other, and they can talk to each other via the MCP. And that's a really cool development that's happening and starting to become more prevalent, and can help kind of, as you talk about these agents starting to go do work for you, your computer can actually do now what you want it to do for you and what computers were sort of always meant to do, which is offload a lot of the administrative work that we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and it's just amazing how efficient you can become. Because I'm a lawyer, I'm in the algorithm to see all of these different types of AI technologies that are coming available. And, on my lunch break today, I was, watching a non-law related video, but then an advertisement came on for Harvey AI. and you may have seen some advertisements, and I really don't know much about it, but I think the CEO or the founder of that company was talking about how, this technology is allowing you to actually be more client facing rather than, being stuck in your office and doing research and doing, the administrative stuff that makes law practice so time consuming and hard and stressful. Really, the fun in being a lawyer is being out in front of people and, being the hero, so to speak, getting the job done for folks. And so I thought that was interesting. I wasn't expecting a 3-minute advertisement that I would watch the entirety of, but that's what happened. So it's just really exciting, the technology that you have, and the ability to do research, like in-depth research. I was telling you that this week I in a trial version of Clio Work. I think I've got all access to everything that Clio Work has, but that's the most sophisticated AI technology that Clio has at this time, and just the memos that it can draft, in really a heartbeat is just unbelievable. I had a paralegal ask me this week, how do I need to track my time? I'm using some AI tools, and they're doing work for me. I'm kind of looking at it, but I'm kind of not. I'm able to work on something else while AI is doing its own thing. How do I track my time? And I was like, that is a great question. I know the example from law school is like you can bill time while you're on the airplane traveling to some place. You can bill for your flight time, but then also you can be working on another matter and you can kind of bill twice. But it's a very rare instance where you're able to do that. And so what I did was I asked Vincent, the AI research assistant, how am I supposed to be billing my time? And, it goes through all of the Indiana rules of professional responsibility. And, it tells me these are the rules that apply. This is what you need to be doing. And, the conclusion is you've got to bill for only your actual time that you're working on it. That's the whole deal. And so but it was like a 3 or 4 page memo that was very, very detailed and awesome. So it just helps you to come to conclusions a lot quicker.
Yeah, Clio's Vincent, I've been really impressed with, and Clio Work in particular. And it makes sense because you're utilizing Clio, if you've done it correctly, to be that single source of truth for the information in your office. And so naturally, the AI tool Clio has access to that information. And then it has access to this very robust tool set or legal research tool set in Vincent that can take and apply the facts and circumstances of a particular matter and apply Indiana law to it very quickly. And so the example you just gave is a great one where you may be looking at, okay, I'm developing policies and procedures for my law firm, and I need to know how to advise my lawyers, my team on what is an appropriate measure of billing for it. And great, it has all the context. It knows probably how many team members you have how many billable units and those kind of things. And so it has some context for that to start. And it's pretty incredible what it can do with the pattern matching and different things that it's able to do. So I think really for me, what I've started to appreciate more and more about the available tools that we have in our toolbox now is just the analytic component to the AI tool. I don't want it to do my thinking for me, but I do like it to review and highlight things for me. It doesn't substitute me actually going in, reviewing, understanding, and knowing what's in the documents itself. But if I've done it and I feel like I have a good knowledge base, I can run it through the AI and compare it and go, you know what? I didn't really catch that particular piece or think about it in that way because that put two things together from page 1 and page 150 that I didn't really think related together, but now that I think about it, that's probably a good thing. And so I think it actually enhances what I'm able to do in definitely a shorter amount of time, right? It's able to kind of give me that information on a very quick look through. And it's like having a second set of eyes and really a second brain looking at things. And so it's really interesting. I think one of the keys is being intentional with what you're doing with it. So again, as you talk about billing, if you set up the project and you let it run, you don't get to bill while it's running and doing its thing if you're working on other things. And so you got to be real cognizant of that and intentional about it. And hopefully it enables you to provide more service to your client with less time. And that then is a better solution for them and it makes you more effective, not just more efficient.
Yeah. And, Seth, you and I have been doing a podcast for a long time. We've been talking with one another for, I think it's probably 10 years now where we've had these weekly meetings. And, I don't know if this is going to sound like a slight or not. It doesn't mean to be a slight, but one of the benefits that just having, the camaraderie of another attorney is being able to bounce ideas off of that person. And, it's interesting that you can actually bounce ideas off of Vincent in Clio now and say, hey, I'm thinking about this legal theory. What are the strengths and weaknesses of this theory? What would be a decent plan of action? There's still the attorney judgment call that comes into play. But I think that, that's why it's the practice of law, right? We don't always have clear answers. So if you can kind of wrestle with a problem inside of Clio, I like the fact that it's in the housing of that secure environment, and you can just kind of go pound for pound on both sides of the argument and flesh out your ideas. I think that's a really helpful thing. I'm not saying it replaces, the camaraderie that you got with other lawyers, but it does help you to come to maybe some more polished legal opinions.
Yeah, and to that end, I think I'm able to interact more on a deeper level, I think, with colleagues than before. And I can speak more intelligently because I may be processing what I think the law says about something because I didn't want to go spend 2 hours digging in and researching it. And I didn't want to bill the client for those 2 hours of research because maybe I think I can get that done in a 15-minute conversation with somebody that'll at least give me the key source that I need to go find. Vincent allows you to accelerate all of those things, I think, or Lexis or Westlaw or whatever, but you're able to get into that much more quickly and get a quick summary and go, okay, yeah, that does, I remember reading that case when it came out, but I hadn't gone back and researched it in depth because I didn't have the right situation, but now I do. And I can take that summary and then see how that whole body of law has developed. And I can get well versed in it quickly and then talk to a colleague about, okay, help me argue this. Is this going to be a good argument? What are the weak points? And have that more in-depth, engaged, informed discussion with my colleagues and or my clients as a result of the same amount of work that I used to do.
Yeah, it is pretty neat. Another feature that I've noticed in Clio work is that it's got a plug-in with Word. And I actually haven't delved into that hardly at all. But I think if I understand it correctly, you're able to take the Clio template that you have in, Clio Manager, what have you, and you can pull it into Microsoft Word and just work from it there. And then I think the plugin will help you to fill out all the details of it. And it's easier to create templates too, I believe. Have you had any experience with the plugin there?
It's funny you say that because we're actually going through that process in the office in terms of the integration with Clio Work and Clio Draft and how all of that kind of works together. And so frankly, I haven't figured it all out yet. And it's on my to-do list to go through. But yeah, there's some great capabilities there. And thinking about an existing sort of form bank connected with Vincent is a very powerful thing. So I can open up an existing form, open the plugin right there, have Vincent kind of come in and say, hey, did this statute change? It's, July 2nd of the year when the new laws have just come out. Let's make sure all these forms are up to date. And you can kind of run it on an ad hoc basis, form by form. And then I think the promise of it, whether it's here yet or not, is it can then go through and say, hey, you have this data inside your Clio database. Do you want me to go ahead and put it in the form for you? And so you'll have, dear Mr. Smith as a client with Mr. Smith's address, the regarding line filled out with the matter description, and a CC line with all the related parties or contacts on the matter, for example. And so that, if that promise comes true, is going to be incredible in terms of a drafting situation where it can now basically do all of it from front end, use your form, fill in the gaps, and get you a finished product in a very short amount of time.
It's all very, very exciting stuff. And Seth, I think that you have been maybe on the circuit recently with some continuing legal education seminars that you've done. What have been some of your topics that you've had?
Well, most recently, last week or the week before, it was the week before last, we were presenting through Indiana's Continuing Legal Education Foundation's Advanced Family Law Seminar. And I presented with Judge Andrew Block of the Hamilton County Circuit Court. And Judge Block and I have presented on a couple of different occasions on law office and practice technology from the bench perspective in Judge Block's case and the practitioner's perspective in my case. And this discussion was all about AI and AI evidence. So what can practitioners and family law area in the family law area expect? What issues should they be watching out for? What are some of the things and trends that you're starting to see in the AI space? And so it was a great discussion. It was a lot of fun. I'm not a family law practitioner, so I bring in more of the technical side of, hey, these are things to watch out for, and here's some ideas for how to use AI well. How do you spot what may be AI created? How do you flag some of these potential issues as you're reviewing your evidence in discovery and getting ready to present your case in front of the family court? And so it was a lot of fun. It was wide ranging. There's some photographs that we used that were artificially created. I was not at Woodstock in 2000, but there's now a photograph that shows me at Woodstock in 2000 with Judge Block. We didn't know each other then. So just a lot of interesting things that we were able to do with that. So a lot of fun. Always grateful for the opportunity to speak at those. But as I always say, I'm a little concerned when I get invited to talk at a CLE seminar on artificial intelligence because my secret's been found out. I'm only artificially intelligent.
Yeah, it's definitely not true, but I appreciate the self-deprecation there. Yeah, it's an exciting time, and more and more of these CLEs are about the topic of AI, and I know that you have been on top of all the changes in the technology and have been a resource to me to get me to use Claude and all kinds of other things. So I encourage everybody to keep listening to the Lifetime Legacy Lawyer podcast. Seth is a huge resource for us, and take advantage of the things that you're going to learn from him, and maybe a thing or two from me along the way. Anything else that we want to chat about before we go, Seth?
Oh man, Thomas, we could talk for hours on this stuff. It's so much fun. I think the big thing is, again, be very, very cautious as you're utilizing these tools. And the Clio one I feel comfortable with because Clio has taken the right approach, in my opinion, and research and estimation on how to appropriately, safely, securely integrate artificial intelligence into the practice of law, utilizing your practice management tool. And I think it's got a huge advantage in the marketplace for that. But just be careful. There's so much in the news about what happens with AI. We have multiple devices and multiple accounts all connecting to different services. It's very difficult, the more services you utilize, to understand all of the terms of service that are there, all the privacy policies. Where did you accidentally maybe disclose some client data? Just be very cautious with all of that. Use some trusted systems, make sure you've got a good habit in place on how you utilize these tools, but then leverage them, because I think they're so powerful. If, again, they don't just enable you to do more work, they just enable you to do better work. And keep that in perspective as well. We're not trying to increase your capacity to be more burnt out. You want it to actually help you be able to focus on serving your clients' needs better. and serving your family and your community as a result of that. And I think that's the essence of a lifetime legacy lawyer practice, is that impact that you can have through the law firm on your life.
We'll leave it right there. Everybody check us out on YouTube, Lifetime Legacy Lawyer. Search for us on YouTube and go to lifetimelegacylawyer.riverside.com, correct?
That'll get you there.
Yeah, that'll get you there. And give us a follow on all the different podcast outlets. We appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Thomas. We'll see you later.